Well, hey guys, welcome back to another episode of We Got Balls. And today we're going to talk about the clothes that turn you on. It's summertime as we're recording this. And I know when I was a teenager, Scott, that there were a ton of opportunities to go to the beach in the summertime to see what people were wearing. And if it's clothes that really excite you, if you really get turned on by a particular item of clothing that someone is wearing, maybe like a sundress or maybe like a
jockstrap.
then you want to stick around for this episode. We'll be right back.
Welcome to We Got Balls, real, raw, masculine sex talk with Chris Inman and Scott Cohn. Here we go.
Well, Scott, we were just talking about clothes that turn you on. And so one of the things that I think is really interesting when we talk about clothes is what we're really talking about, as we've talked about the whole part of the podcast, is we're talking about the body. We're talking about what we see behind the clothes that are maybe a shadow or an image. I know there's one particular image with girls. I forget what it's technically called, but essentially it's a girl in a dress with no underwear on, and she has a light shining through her legs. And so you can catch the faint outline of her labia majora, if you know what that is.
Wow.
And it's
Upskirt video?
no, it's not upskirt. It's gap pictures. So basically you're seeing a thigh gap. You're seeing that space where the woman's labia is, but you're seeing it like kind of shadowed or covered a little bit. It's not the full picture. It's not bold and in color. It's got a dress over it. And so you're having this image. And so I think when we're talking about clothes that turn you on, we got to recognize we're talking about the body, right? But there's specific things and specific aspects of these clothes that really excite different people. And so we just want to have a discussion about it because it's an invitation to curiosity around what are you really looking for?
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about the male version of that, it's the bulge photos, right?
The bulge.
Bulge.
Yeah, I don't think if there's a big bulge, what do you call that? The mons pubes. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct, but mons pubis, I think is what it's called. There's not a big, women bulge thing, but the men bulge means, what does a big bulge for a man mean, Scott?
Well, with the now we're going really off field here, but there are camel toe photos.
Yeah, but that's not the bulge. That's just the slit, right?
I know.
We're talking about.
You were asking. You were comparing the male bulge to the female things.
Bulge. There's no bulge.
But,
although I will say, and we'll talk about this, yoga pants are a big clothing item that turns people on because you not only get the possible camel toe in the front, you get the tight big booty in the back.
Yeah, right. With unobstructed view.
Unobstructed.
So, the thing that struck me about this lately, that's interesting, and it may just be because in my Facebook feed, because I'm always reading up on sexuality themed content and stuff. Maybe I get served these kinds of ads, but I saw an ad the other day. I've seen this ad before of just some slacks, men's slacks. But in the ad itself, you can clearly see the outline of this guy's penis. It's clearly designed. Yeah. Like he's, what do we call it? VPL, visible penis line. So
they got a three-legged man to model for him, basically.
Yeah. And it's so like blatantly obvious. And I'm like, what are they really selling here? And so,
what are they selling?
This
Sex?
whole issue. I know what they're selling. The whole issue here is, around the allure or the mystique of what's behind the clothes, I think, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about sundresses, what do you think is going on there with the appeal of the sundress?
So in this idea, so I think there's a lot of things. Obviously, in the wintertime, you get people wearing bigger, bulkier clothes. And so you don't really have the opportunity for women to really showcase their bodies. And the sundress is kind of like the perfect mix of everything. It's low cut enough that you maybe get a cleavage line. So if you're a breast man, you kind of get a good picture of what's going on up top. and it's flowy. And I mean, you think about what's one of the most popular photos in the history of modern culture.
Marilyn Monroe walking over the air grate with her skirt blowing up.
Exactly. And that's what a sundress hope is for a guy. And might I see the skirts fly up a little bit? Might I see a little bit of the booty? Might I see some upper thighs? Is there going to be some hugging of the body in this dress? And it's thin, it's light, it's flowy, it's got a feminine quality to it. It's really, for a guy who's looking for a woman, it's really alluring. And so it's kind of like the best of all possible worlds in summer clothing.
So there is this whole association, I think, with undressing, right? And the allure of like not getting the full picture of what somebody's like naked underneath the clothing, but just the peekaboo. There's something about that mysterious. I'm not seeing it all, but I'm seeing enough that it's arousing.
So the arousal, the excitement is in the pursuit, not in the fulfillment, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's wired into the seeking circuits, and there's a bit of playfulness that's associated with that too. It's like on the same sex attracted guy front, it's like I get all these questions all the time. What is it about jock straps that I find to be so sexy? Like what? And I'll say, well, what is your story around being in the locker room around guys in jock straps, and why is that seen as kind of this quintessential male attire? What's your story around that?
So that's interesting that it's not just, and maybe with any kind of clothing, it's not just the clothing itself and what you see and what you're experiencing with the actual piece of clothing, but what the context of that piece of clothing is as well. Like for example, I mean, there are people who, and I'll say this because I've met them, growing up in church, they were fascinated with crawling under pews, and they get really turned on by a church skirt, a fitted woman's mini skirt. And because they are hoping to be able to sneak a peek underneath up that skirt, as you said earlier, do the upskirt pick. And so it's the context of this is really wrong to be doing this here. And it's probably different in the locker room, but it's the same kind of vibe. I want something from this. I want to have an experience here. And the jockstrap kind of represents the attire in totality of what's really going on.
Yeah. And I think the other part of that is it ties into summer again, but think about the all-time, one of the biggest blockbusters in history was Jaws. And the reason Jaws was so appealing to so many people is not because they showed the shark, it's because they didn't show the shark, because originally Steven Spielberg was planning to have this mechanical shark, and it was state of the art at the time in terms of special effects. And the shark was kind of worthless.
Yeah, it broke down all the time.
It broke down all the time. It wasn't that scary. And so, Spielberg took a page out of Alfred Hitchcock, which is we are more afraid of the things we don't see than the things we do see, because our imagination fills in the holes. And the human imagination is far more brilliant at concocting fearful or erotic things than you can see on the screen. And so I think a lot of the appeal of this kind of clothing, sexy clothing, if you want to call it that, is what it's not showing. It's getting close enough to show things, but in a way that pulls our allure in. It's designed to tap into our longing for, dare I say it, beauty.
Ooh, those are two good words, Scott. I love those words. Longing and beauty. Longing and beauty.
Yeah. So go back to the first time you ever saw an image of a naked person.
I'll even go back further. I don't think it was a naked person where the longing and beauty showed up. I think it was looking at catalogs where women were wearing their underwear.
Oh, that's a very common boy experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'd be flipping through, and of course, it wasn't any kind of lingerie. It was just a woman in a state of undress, or maybe even seeing underwear. Maybe seeing like a girl in school or at church who's bending over, and you see her underwear kind of coming out of the back of her pants or jeans, and that's kind of arousing. It's like, oh, that's interesting. That I see a little bit of that. I wonder what that's covering up. So that curiosity, that longing, is, I don't even know where it comes from. I mean, where do you think that beginning of wanting to look for someone dressed in a particular way comes from?
God.
Whoa. Whoa. Time out. We're putting this back on God today. Okay. So you're saying that there's a longing for just human experience and human connection, and to be with people in their created form, in their beauty. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think Dan Allender said it best at Men's Recovery Week last year. You were made by God to want to make love to everything that's beautiful in creation.
Oh,
And that was a scandalous statement, but it was so good.
Dan's a crazy old man for sure.
He is a nutty professor, and I love the way he talks, because there was something profoundly glorious in that statement, and it's true. When you go back to Genesis 1 and God's got Adam and Eve prancing around naked as a jaybird, both of them, he pronounces this incredible benediction. It's very good. And that hasn't gone away. That the fall didn't change the very goodness of how God created us to be naked and unashamed. And so that part remains. That's not destroyed in the fall. And so there is a sense in which you were made to be aroused by everything beautiful in creation, and naked human bodies are beautiful. Now, you can take that to a place of lust, but you can also contain it to a place of honor if you want to. You get to decide what you want to do with that, but you're going to. And I think about you as a little boy, or me as a little boy, seeing a naked person in a pornographic magazine and kind of coming alive at that.
Yeah, and I think it's because there weren't any clothes. It's like, because my arousal template to that point had been trained that I'm looking at people with clothes on, and it's the clothes themselves that turn me on. And I think, I'm a sucker for a nice pair of jeans. I'm a sucker for a crop top shirt. I hate to say this, but back when Britney Spears was popular, that was like, that's the kind of woman that I'm attracted to. And yet the first time I saw a naked woman, especially one who was posed to be sexually alluring, legs open a little bit, hips turned, or that look in her face, that was a whole new world of, it's almost too much.
Yes. And well, it is too much at that particular age, right? It's overwhelming to your senses as a little boy. Like, I was exposed to my dad's Playboy magazines when I was 5 years old, because he had a big stack and he put them in the basement. And, this was in the 60s and 70s. And it was, if you think about Playboy itself, I was just reading about it this week. Hugh Hefner, he was an editor at Esquire magazine, and they wouldn't let him do the things he wanted to do. And so he started Playboy because he basically got fired from his job and was looking for a way to survive. And it was really brilliant the way he combined the things that he was doing in the magazine with the word Playboy, right? This allure of being a Playboy. But if you think about the kinds of photos that were in Playboy back in the early days, it was the shirt open, just showing the breast. It's that photo in Forrest Gump where Jenny is the girls of the Southern schools, right? And Forrest, sorry I ruined your sweater. that scene is but I love that scene because there's a beauty to Forrest awakening to the beauty of Jenny's sexual body, but it's not in an, they're friends, and there's a tenderness, and there's a real joy and discovery there, but also, ooh, what just and I think that's what it is like for most of us that's why the catalogs, the lingerie section it's every boy's kind of first foray into that sexual awakening, I think. And we could always tell when our boys were entering puberty when the Victoria's Secret catalogs would disappear and then show up in their bedroom under their beds, right? And so there is an innocence about that isn't, I don't think, going all the way into the pornographic side. But what I'm saying is that's how God created you. He created you to feel alive by that invitation to gaze at another person's beauty. And that's never going to go away.
Yeah. So let me just say that in a little more neutral terms. That's natural and good. The desire to be with other people, to look at the beauty of people's bodies is natural and good. I think where we move it into an obsessive or addictive or chaotic place is when it becomes something I have to look at to feel good. Like, I'm not good, I'm not okay if I'm not looking at a person in this way.
Yes. And it's also consumptive in that sense. Like, I'm going to consume that other person's beauty. So again, I like the way that Dan Allender talks about the difference between kind of desire and lust. And lust, he will say that lust basically has two components to it. Lust is first and foremost a desire to have or consume the other person's beauty. I must have you. But it's also a demand that somebody else pay for me being empty. So it has those two elements.
Right. So there we go. So when that's the true dark side of looking at people for the clothes that they're in, is then it often, almost universally, goes beyond the looking at the clothes to the looking at consuming and robbing that person of their identity, their goodness, their worth, so that I can feel okay.
That's right. Now, here's the dilemma. You get all these messages that come, particularly in the evangelical church in the 90s, around purity culture, right? So this idea is created at the time that men are these insatiable lust monsters that cannot control their eyes. And there's all these techniques that are advocated for that. And at the flip side of it, you get the message that women have to be modest. And what does modesty mean? And then there's all these discussions about modesty.
Oh, well, skirts down no more than 2 inches above your knee, one-piece bathing suits, making sure you don't have anything low cut or suggestive. Don't show your midriff. I've got it. I got the playbook in the other room if you want me to go get it.
Yeah.
The purity culture. Yeah. This is the free from lust playbook. We can pull that out if you want to.
So then women become responsible for how men lust and consume women, and men are totally incapable of staying in a place of honor with their desire. Like,
so essentially the setup of that is it's a lose-lose.
Yeah.
Women say I'm an object. I'm just going to be consumed. So my job is to help you say no and to cover up my body and feel ashamed about it. That's really, really harmful. When you have to say to a woman, your body is just a tool for somebody else's sexual desire, rather than it's beautiful and good in all its unique ways. And for guys, it basically says you can't help yourself. Boys will be boys. You're going to do what you're going to do, which is also robbing them of their ability to be strong and compassionate and present and have a purpose that's unique and caring for the world, instead of just running around like 80s sex comedies, just hornballs staring through walls, hoping to catch a peek.
Yep. It makes me think about the nuance that's in country music at times, because if you listen to country music, you hear these really passionate, very sexual romantic songs that guys are writing about their spouse or girlfriend, about, you know, that when you got that red dress on and it's slipping off the shoulder and dropping to the floor. And
Yeah.
but it's all taking context in a really loving relationship. It's not horn dog, you know, just screwing whatever walks by you. And so I think what that does is, to me, it's honoring that, both that longing and that desire to be merged with beauty, but at the same time having some healthy boundaries around how that actually takes place then. And I think in this discussion about clothing, modesty, what's appropriate and not in terms of attire, what's sexy and not, I think it's important to really kind of balance those two things about how do I, you know, appreciate and welcome beauty in all of its forms, without feeling like I have to take it to a place of consuming that. And to do that, you have to engage your story.
Well, we're back. Welcome back, guys. If you've been gone for a while and you don't know, it's all about the story. And I think so. Let's talk about this in particular. Let's talk about the story of a bikini, because I remember way back in middle school, early high school, I would go on church trips to the beach. I didn't grow up at the beach. I live at the beach now, but I didn't grow up at the beach. And it was always like in March or April, early in the year. So it was a little cool sometimes at the beach. And yet when we would go, I would go with my church group. And of course, none of the church girls had bikinis, because you had to wear a t-shirt over your bikini if you wore a bikini, or a one piece. But there would be these other girls who would be at the beach, who would be walking around, and they'd be wearing a bikini, a two-piece bathing suit. And that was a place in my life where I was longing for connection. I had all these other girls that I knew and were kind of like my sisters, my friends, you know. Yeah, that's so what? I could connect with them, but what I was really wanting was to connect with some of those other girls who were at the beach wearing those bikinis. So what do you hear in that story?
I hear a lot of longing for connection. I hear kind of sexual awakening. Maybe not knowing what to do with that. What do I do with my arousal? I hear maybe some messages of purity culture. Don't you dare look at women in bikinis, right?
Yeah. In fact, there were a couple of male counselors who would come down and grab us off the beach when you noticed there were some girls who weren't with our group walking around. So we need to go back to the lodge. Let's go.
Oh man, like, wow, what a missed opportunity that was.
What do you mean by that?
How different would your life have been if after a day at the beach where there was a bunch of bikinis, he would have gotten the guys together and you could have had an open and honest conversation about desire and lust, or arousal and lust.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about it like that, but yeah, that would have been a great opportunity to teach and learn.
What was that like for you guys to see all these girls displaying their breasts in their bikinis? Did you find it welcoming, longing, desire? What was going on in your body? Yeah. Did you find it hard to control your arousal? Let's talk about that. What do men do in these situations?
That is a whole different concept of youth ministry than anything that I ever experienced growing up.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, me too. But
yeah,
right. What a great, when you read Song of Solomon, you know, it's amazing how freely both those lovers were in that erotic poem in praising their bodies of each other, you know, and in really graphic terms. And so what I see there is this deep attraction and arousal at beauty, and there's the goodness of that. And I think the way to really learn to steward that well is to think about it, to think about how does it impact me, not to do this and go, oh, that I can't look at that, because what happens when I do this?
I want to do that. I just want to peek, any little peek. The withdrawal of sight makes me want to cheat and lie and hide.
Feel shame.
Yes, that's it. So let's flip that. I mean, and what if other guys have had different experiences? Maybe you went to the beach when you were young and the older guys were oogling at these young girls with you, and they're, oh, doesn't she look hot, man? She's sexy girl. And so now instead of having the cover your eyes, you have somebody who's not helping you bring meaning to what is it to look at this person wearing that kind of clothing. And so then you have the other experience where you're diving off the deep end and jumping into your desire with no boundaries, with no structure. And so then you have experiences that bring you what after you've maybe hooked up with one of these girls at the beach?
Also shame.
Also shame. So shame is everywhere.
So if you go too far in one direction, you're going to have shame. If you go too far in the other direction, you're going to have shame. The third way is how can we honor desire? How can we honor beauty? Right.
And bring, and I'll use this word, and bring consent, because consent is the opposite of consumption. Bring consent and connection to a relationship. That's a beautiful girl. She's got a great body, wonderful bikini. Let me go have a conversation with her and get to know her.
Yeah. And you begin to see her as what she was really created to be, which is to bear the image of God in her body. Yeah. Just
she's
like
a human being. She's a soul. Like I love how airplanes and ships talk about people. You ever heard that phrase? They call them souls. So many souls on board. I love that term because it creates a concept of this is more than just a physical presence. It is a spiritual, emotional being who deserves my care.
And I think that's the big difference between arousal and lust, right? I can be aroused by a person's beauty and I can honor them as an image bearer, as somebody reflecting the glory of God in the way that they're made, but not just their body, but all of them.
Wait, I can say that somebody is smoking hot and also connect with them emotionally?
Yeah. Like,
what are you saying?
I'm working out with my best friend yesterday, Luke, and Luke is 6'4". He's a handsome guy. And I just was in awe of his physical beauty, his presence, but who he is as a man he's just a wonderful, loving, caring, playful, fun, godly man. And I said to him, Luke, you are a handsome man. He goes, thank you, Scott. and I just enjoyed being with him, having our workout and enjoying one another's company. But, and I've been thinking about this week, what is it that draws us to people as friends or as somebody that we're attracted to? And we're drawn, I think, initially by their physical. There's something about the physical presence of another person that draws us to them.
Absolutely. That's their billboard. That's their calling card.
Right.
That's what you see.
But if you never go deeper than that, like, do you really want a friendship where, like, if I gain a few pounds, you're out of the relationship because you don't like fat people?
Well, if we live in 90210, I guess that's the tenor of the relationship.
Right.
Or like, if we're just gym bros, then that's all we are, just there for pumping iron and talking about chicks. But I think you said something that's really key to kind of differentiate this conversation. We need to look at people for who they are, not for what they wear. Now, what they wear can be beautiful, and we can honor that, and we can respect that, and we can say you look great in what you're wearing, but I'm far more interested in who you are than how you present to me.
And I think that's the difference between true arousal and lust, right? Because when I'm aroused by you, I'm aroused by everything that makes you you. I'm not looking to use you. Like you said to me earlier this week, and it was a really powerful expression of love, Scott, I don't need anything from you. That's really true arousal and friendship. There's arousal in friendship, right? There's arousal in seeing a beautiful woman or a beautiful man, but it's not consumptive. Whereas in the lust side of the equation, all I do is see you as a piece of meat.
Yep.
You're just
A-
a fleshlight.
And every time you go to the beach and you're looking for women in bikinis, or every time you go to the gym and you're looking for guys in job straps, or every time you go take a walk and looking for women in sundresses, or every time you go to out to the grocery store and looking for people in tight pants. We didn't even mention this. We forgot about gray sweatpants, Scott. What about the gray sweatpants?
Oh, the gray sweatpants for guys. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody loves that.
VPL.
That's right.
But you got to free ball it.
You got to free ball it. It's all good. But that if you're on the hunt for those types of clothing and many more things we didn't describe, the question I would ask you is, what do you really want? What are you really looking for? Is it to be connected to another person, or to just get another hit of a cheap site and to be in that place of shame, trying to get off again?
And then be curious about your story, the parts of your story where that becomes a thing for you. This is the way I relate to beauty. How did I learn to relate to beauty? By consuming it, right? Versus appreciating it, honoring it. So,
and we do honor you and value you and want to connect with you. You can always connect with us live on YouTube, 11 a.m. Central on Fridays, noon Eastern time, and 9 a.m. Pacific. We'll be live on our YouTube channel, We Got Balls Pod, P-O-D. So you can look that up. Please subscribe. If you're listening to us on a podcast platform, please like and leave a review. We don't ask for that much. But man, we're getting a lot of traction with guys, and we want to continue to spread the message. And one of the best ways to do that is to be seen of as a helpful resource. So please like us and leave a review wherever you're listening to us.
And if you've got questions, you can reach us at wegotballs00@gmail.com and just send us your questions there, or go to our YouTube channel and you can leave comments on the podcast videos and we'll respond to those, but you can give us your questions there as well. So,
and guys, we're always excited to be with you, no matter what you want to look at. And summertime, whatever you're seeing, whatever you're excited about, we want to be curious with you as you engage with whatever you're seeing right here on We Got Balls.
And you do too.
Take care, guys.
Don't forget to subscribe for more episodes. You can connect with Chris and with Scott at successfulmen.com.